The Kansas City Chiefs have traded a 2026 sixth-round pick, not this upcoming draft, but the draft after that, a sixth-round pick from that draft in order to receive the services of Uche, Steve Polychronopoulos from the New England Patriots. Guys, this is a very, very smart trade, a very shrewd trade. I've got 9 talking points to get into. But real quick, if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. So consider hitting the subscribe button to stick around for more, and make sure you are subscribed because I drop videos every day of the week about the Kansas City Chiefs. So the big question here, who is JoeH? 6'1" 1/4", 245 pounds, 33 5/8 inch arms, did 18 reps on the bench press with 225 pounds. Now, he came out in the draft out of Michigan, ended up being a second-round pick of the 2020 draft. You remember 2020, there was no combine, there were no pro days, so he recorded himself and sent videos of himself working out to all of the teams in the league. That is the type of forward-thinking guy that I think is going to fit in well with this Chiefs team. That is entrepreneurship, if nothing else. Very interesting guy, very interesting work ethic, and that comes up in his tape. So the second thing that I want to talk about, so here's the thing. No testing numbers. I think that just like Mike Dana, who we'll get back to in a moment, he would have exceptional cone drills. I think he would have a serviceable 40. I think that he would have good numbers, but not great numbers. Sometimes solid numbers is all it takes as long as you have a couple of other elements. Moving on, the number 2 thing that I want to talk about here, this season he costs $3 million, but that was for the entire season. He signed a 1-year prove-it type deal with the Patriots because of a certain season in his past that we will talk about in just a moment as well. But there are only 10 games left in the season, so if you prorate that out, I mean, what is that? You're looking at $1.5, $1.7 million that you're going to end up having to pay the guy, so you still have a little bit of money left over. If there is anything left in the tank for Uche, then this is absolutely a financial bargain. But a financial bargain for what? What kind of player are the Kansas City Chiefs getting here? Well, let's look at the production that he's had since he was drafted in 2020. In 2020, he had 9 tackles for 1 sack. He had 7 quarterback hits and 10 pressures on 178 defensive snaps. Decent stuff. Kind of similar production rates to Mike Dana. In 2021, he had 12 total tackles, 3 sacks, 4 quarterback hits, 8 pressures on 236 snaps. A bit of a regression as far as pop per snap is concerned. But then we get the 2022 season. And in 2022, he had 27 tackles, 11.5 sacks, 14 quarterback hits, 25 pressures on 374 snaps. An absolutely monstrous year here for JoeH Uche. In 2023, however, he regressed to the mean a little bit. 15 total tackles, 3 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, 15 pressures on 331 snaps. Now, the interesting thing to look at here with this set of numbers and the 2024 stats here is that he has about half the playing time that he had in 2023. 331 snaps last season, 162 so far this season. However, he has cashed that in for 13/15 of the tackles. He's 2 tackles short of his entire season last year. 2/3 of the sacks. He already has 2 sacks versus 3 last year. Half of the quarterback hits, so he's on pace there. But he's fallen off a little bit with the pressures, having 1/3 of the pressures of last season, 5, versus the 15 he had for the total season last year. But one thing that is interesting to note, and I did not look at the game-by-game basis here, sometimes as the season goes on, and I hate to sound this way, try-hard type players like Uche, guys who are high motor players, as the season goes on and more players are dealing with nagging injuries and things, that's where those guys start to accumulate some more stats. So it might be an answer so simple as that, what has happened with the pressures there. But everything else is right on line or above pace from last year. Last year, obviously, a bit of a disappointing year for what they would have hoped to get from Uche after that 2022 season. But guys, that season is an awfully large anomaly. The stats here for this season, one thing that I wanted to bring up, I wanted to talk about, because we're going to get back to this idea in a minute. I wanted to talk about Felix Anudike-Uzomah, but I want to talk about it right now because we have the stats on screen. Felix Anudike-Uzomah so far this season has 153 defensive snaps, 162 for Uche, meaning that Uche has played just 9 more snaps than has Felix Anudike-Uzomah. He has 1 more sack than Felix. He has 1 more tackle than Felix. He has, give me 1 second here. Where am I at? QB hits. Where's the stat at? I apologize for this. I thought I had this ready to go. Anyway, oh yeah, he has 2 fewer QB hits than Felix Anudike-Uzomah. And pressures, he has the same amount. So this is going to come back later, but I wanted to get that out there right now because we're looking at players that are comparable as far as the stat sheet itself is concerned. Now, notes on Uche himself. He reminds me a lot of Mike Danna, and, well, he was a 2020 draft pick. He was an edge out of Michigan. All of those things just like Mike Danna. Only Uche was drafted 60th overall versus the 5th rounder that was Mike Danna. When you say someone reminds you of Mike Danna, you're talking about something fairly ubiquitous as far as a player like Mike Danna is concerned. He's a little bit less of an athlete, I think, than Mike Danna. He is not an athlete, he is a technician. He's very good at setting things up. He's very good with first step, but not necessarily first step forward. He's very good at setting up a pass rush with that first step. So I don't think he has the most physical tools, but that's why he straps on a tool belt. He has all sorts of tricks of the trade that he's doing with footwork. I think he's good with his hands. All sorts of things, actually, that are going to be interesting to watch for this Kansas City Chiefs defensive line, because I think he's maybe a little bit the opposite of FAU in that way. I don't know that FAU is quite as polished. He is a high motor player, does not quit on plays. That is going to be key in this defense. This defense, for the most part, has sort of a slow roam to the quarterback, not a whole lot of great quick speed here. They do have players that will take advantage of being whiffed on, right? Someone doesn't pick somebody up on the blitz off of or on the defensive line. They're good at closing the gap and making the play, but not a whole lot of great speed on the defensive line here. So when you have high motor stretched across several players, it does not de facto become speed, but it de facto becomes inescapability, right? George Karlaftis, slow march towards the quarterback. Chris Jones, slow march towards the quarterback. Now you have another guy, Josh Uche, just like Mike Danna, slow march toward the quarterback. He is a good tackler. He has only missed 3 tackles in his entire career, at least as far as Pro Football Reference is concerned. Unfortunately, all 3 of those missed tackles were this season. The big deal, obviously, going forward with Uche, with the Kansas City Chiefs, what made him outsizedly good in 2022? What were the determining factors in him having such an amazing 2022 season? If you can replicate that, if you can reverse engineer that, if you can figure out some of the ingredients to that, well, you've got yourself a bargain and a guy that, look, I'm not going to try to make the point that Uche is a superstar, but he could be Mike Dana plus. That would be pretty cool. He has good speed. I don't think he has great speed. He has good bend. I don't think he has great bend. He has real good footwork. I don't think he has elite footwork. So you've definitely got some stuff that you're working with here. But this brings up the specter of the number 5 point that I have there. Is this the end for FAU? Is the Dana injury more serious than we thought? Is there a setback with Charles Omenihu? Remember, we thought that Charles Omenihu was going to be coming back in the next few weeks, and at that point, the Kansas City Chiefs pass rush would be complete. Or are they just not happy with the pass rush? It would be a bit of a hard sell to say you're just not happy with the pass rush coming off of a 5-sack performance. But if you can get better, you get better. I'm not sure which of these questions this is the answer to. I'm not sure which of these questions Josh Uche is the answer to. I really don't know. I think that FAU has shown improvement this year. Statistically, we looked at it. FAU is not far different than Josh Uche this season. Mike Dana, it would seem to me, is a better athlete, perhaps not as great a football player as Josh Uche. So why make the move there? Charles Omenihu, when he was with the Chiefs last year, was absolutely dominant for the small window that we had from him. I can't imagine they trade a future asset for a guy to come in, cut him, and get him on the practice squad. That doesn't make any sense. He's not going to pass through waivers. There's all sorts of things here that are just a little bit off for me. There are all sorts of things here that I just don't quite grasp with this move. But I think we have an answer with the final point that I'm going to talk about at the end of this. So maybe I do understand. But the next thing to talk about here is who gets cut. There's only 53 spots. You're probably talking about 2 players that are going to go back down to the practice squad after this game. You have a cornerback and a wide receiver, Montrell Washington, that are going to be going back down to the practice squad. Maybe those are the spots that you have. Still think you've got to cut somebody. I still think you have to cut someone. Maybe I'm wrong, but I still think you have to make a move even with Sky Moore on the IR. So somebody's got to go somewhere, I think. The next question here, the number 7 talking point that I have for this acquisition, the Kansas City Chiefs acquiring Josh Uche for a 2026 6th-round pick. Are they done? You didn't see this coming, did you? Probably you saw more movement coming. Did you think it was going to be a defensive end / quote-unquote linebacker? Edge? I didn't. I thought it was a possibility. I kind of forgot about that possibility. Are they going to trade for a cornerback in light of Jalen Watson going down, Najee Johnson having a concussion, and Joshua Williams kind of quiet quitting? Are they going to trade for another wide receiver? There have been plenty of injuries along the wide receiver spots. You have several other players that maybe are a little bit injury prone. One more slip up at the wide receiver spot and things are nasty. What about offensive tackle? I heard a spot from Pete Prisco, who I kind of hate, talking about, well, can JoeH Uche come in and play offensive tackle? Because that's what they need. As if all teams in the NFL don't have holes somewhere. As if all teams in the NFL don't have some type of misalignment at some spot. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs surrendered just one sack yesterday. Not that that matters, right, Mr. Prisco? Anyway, are they done? Is there another surprise coming? Could they trade for an offensive guard? A defensive tackle? Maybe a middle linebacker somewhere? We'll get back to this. But the penultimate talking point that I have for this acquisition is this. There might be reprieve from Arrowhead Pride's Peter Sweeney. If Uche opted to hit the free agent market after this season, it is reasonable to think the Chiefs could earn back a 7th-round compensatory pick, thus maintaining the player quantity of their 2026 draft class. Meaning, essentially, Uche walks in free agency. If we happen to re-sign him, if the Chiefs re-sign JoeH Uche, well, that's a plus. But if he walks in free agency, it is possible, conceivable, maybe even probable, that the Kansas City Chiefs net a 2026 7th-round pick out of him leaving in 2025 free agency. Meaning that the Kansas City Chiefs would have essentially traded the Patriots a 6th-round pick for JoeH Uche and a 7th-round pick. That would be a masterclass in getting what you want. Now, the final thing that I have to talk about here. Guys, what a Brett Veach move. What a Brett Veach move. This is not the most pressing need on the team. But this is a player that the Chiefs liked and they were able to acquire for very cheap. What does that mean? Who cares? Well, one thing that I say time and again on this channel, Brett Veach is the type of guy who stops to pick up pennies. Why? Well, because that's one more penny than you had. Every penny you pick up puts you a penny closer to $1 million, does it not? Every penny you pick up puts you a penny closer to retirement, does it not? Well, in Brett Veach's case, all of these pennies that he keeps picking up put him one step closer to the Hall of Fame. Put him one step closer to yet another Super Bowl. There are several bigger needs for this Chiefs team. But this is a sign that what Brett Veach is not doing is picking up the phone and calling everyone and asking about offensive tackles. He's not picking up the phone, calling everyone and saying, look, I lost a cornerback. Who do you have for me? Why? Well, because in that case, I have a serviceable 3rd corner, only he's 5th on my depth chart because I got so many corners. Well, yeah, Brett. Yeah, I got somebody. Gonna cost you. No, that's not the way Brett Veach does this. What Brett Veach is doing is saying, okay, I'm calling every GM in the NFL. What do you have and what do you want for it? So he's collecting all of the data. He's collecting all of the names. And then he gets to do his homework on the players. And then he gets to make a counter offer. Look, the rumor was the Patriots wanted a 5th rounder for JoeH Uche. Brett Veach countered and said, look, I can't give you a 5th. I can give you a 6th next year. And he's not desperate for this deal. So when the Patriots hear that and they scoff at it, oh, we're going to get more than that for a guy that had 11.5 sacks 2 years ago. But they don't. Now, Brett Veach has an offer on the table. It's a power move. He's got an offer on the table that ends up being the best offer available. For a player he doesn't need, but will improve the roster. So now he's acquired a player. It's a good player. Make the team better. Doesn't have to have him. But he's getting him for a 6th round pick next year. He's getting him at absolutely no detriment to this year's roster. He's getting him at absolutely no detriment to next year's roster. The 2025 NFL draft will feed next year's roster. Guy, this is a brilliant move. It might not be the highest impact, but this is the type of move that lets you know your general manager is really doing all the homework that there is to be done. He has, and this lets you know also, hey, maybe the Chiefs need a cornerback. Maybe the Chiefs need a left tackle. Guys, there's probably nothing there. If Brett Veach did all the work and got to the point where he was ready to pull the trigger on a Josh Uche defensive end / edge / kind of hybrid linebacker deal, he's looked at all the corners. He's looked at all the offensive tackles. This is not to say there isn't more on the way, right? It's possible. As teams get more desperate closer to the deadline, as teams give up on their seasons closer to the deadline, as teams are willing to take less and less for a 1-year contract that they know a player's not going to help them in the playoffs because they're not going to be in the playoffs. This is just a brilliant move all around. Anyway, guys, that's all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. And if you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And I hope to have you back for the next one.